Okay, so besides turning the wood, everybody always asks, how do you keep the bark on? So, we'll go over that. Okay, so the first thing I do is you cut your log. What they've taught me is you want to try and cut it in the wintertime. It tends to keep the bark on better. So I cut this probably a month ago. I put sealer on it, and it will sit in my shop for as long as it needs to. Now, the other thing that I do, since I'm a little impatient, so this is about the size of the, so I always oversize the log, and the reason is because you're going to have chipping and cracking on the end. This way you can cut the ends off and still have a nice sized bowl. And this cardboard piece is what I use. So once I cut it in half, I bring it to the bandsaw, and then I cut it around. Nice and easy, makes it nice. So that's with storing your logs. So the same thing, I seal this, I put it in the shop, and it sits for a few months. Then if you're still in a little more hurry, you can rough turn the bowls. And the rule of thumb is you measure the diameter and you leave it 10% the thickness of the diameter. So this is about a 10-inch bowl, so this is about 1 inch thick. And this way it gives the wood the chance to shrink and still not be so off balance that you can't return it and get a nice bowl out of it. So I can that one's pretty old. That one's over a year old. Okay. Now the other question people always ask, well, what's the best way to mount this bowl blank? And there are a lot of different ways. You can use this screw chuck, faceplate, faceplates that use your chuck to hold onto it. You can use a glue block. So what you do is actually I saw it last year at the Oregon Symposium. So if you have a really nice burl that you don't want to lose too much of it, you can use a glue block for it. And the demonstrator that I saw, first name is Dan. Dan?
The guy in Ashland, Oregon?
Yes.
Yeah, Layham or something.
Yep. And so what he does, which is really interesting, so he makes a circle so you know right where it's centered. He puts some thick CA glue down, moves a little bit, lifts it up just a little bit, and puts some accelerant, puts it down, and it's glued, and he turned it right away. It's like, wow, I never thought of doing that. So I've done it a couple of times. It actually works really good.
The wood, your oak has to be dead flat though, right?
Yes. Yeah, this is pretty flat, but yeah, there's another piece I did. I put on a belt sander to make sure that it is flatter. There's a little bump in this one. Okay. Now, if you use any of the base plates, what happens is you lose the ability to make the wings the same height because the faceplate is fixed. You can't, actually this way, you can't change it. So the demonstration I'm going to do is we're going to change it so we can get the wings the same height. Now, for some, it doesn't matter that the wings are different height. It's a natural edge bowl that should be different, so it really depends on what your preference is. So if you use a worm, I think it's called a worm. I don't use it too often. But what you want to do is make sure to cut enough of the bark away so that your chuck will fit flush onto solid wood and not onto the bark. Because once you push it again, it's just going to squish the bark. You're not going to have a really good hold. And I was real excited this year. So 3 months ago, I bought a new lathe, and I didn't know what I was missing. Because I had a mini lathe for the whole time. So I have a Laguna now, and it's beautiful.
Which one did you get?
1836 2 horsepower. Okay, now that this is mounted, I need to make sure that the wings are lined up. So I use a pencil and I just eyeball it to see if the top wings are aligned, and they are not. So this one, so I loosen this, move, check the wings, so these are right on. It's like the top ones are the most important, and then you can do the bottom wings and see how they line up. Pretty close. Okay.
Where are you putting your pencil?
On the tool rest. I just put the pencil on the, so if the tool rest was up here, I'm just holding it here and saying it's right on the money. Whether you do it at the edge of the bark or the inside of the bark, whatever preference you want.
Can I convince a little?
Yeah.
What Carlos is saying is really important. People will look at a bowl, and what he's doing is balancing it, so no matter how it's set down on the table, it will look good. And anytime you got a bowl that looks good this way, but it's rotated, oh, well, something's wrong with it. And so by doing the balancing, the way he's doing it, you can achieve that symmetry, which is pleasing to the eye in every direction. So.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Okay, and then my bowl gouges, people always ask, so this is a 60% grind. It's pretty much an Ellsworth
How
grind.
about degree?
60%. I'm sorry?
How many degrees? 60 degrees.
60 degrees. What did I say, 60?
You're a little nervous, aren't you? Like that, we're not going to kill you.
Yeah, it's funny. I've done a lot of classes, but I'm still nervous. You guys are intimidating. See, the difference is when you're teaching a student, they know nothing. You know, so to them, I'm the master. But to you guys, that's different. That's different. All right. Okay. For cutting, a lot of different methods. Depending on how off balance it is, sometimes I'll kind of just chip away at it here until I get a good bevel rub, and then it's a little easier. But that's a big deal, is riding the bevel, because if you're trying to cut an uneven piece, you're going to be bouncing around. It's not going to be very fun. So you want to get a nice bevel rub, take a big enough cut, so you're just riding the bevel. Also, there's you might have heard through AAW, it's ABC, anchor, bevel, cut. So you always want to do that. Also, since I'm talking, I won't use a faceplate, but in my shop, I use a faceplate all the time.
Face shield.
Face shield, face mask.
Are you gonna put a face plate?
Yeah, I'm going to put a face.
Do you hold it with your teeth?
Yeah, I hold it with my teeth.
Go ahead, Carlos.
You know, it's funny, we went to dinner and the lady goes, "Do you need something to drink?" And I said, "No, I'm demonstrating." And somebody says, "Maybe you should." Missed opportunity. Okay. So we'll cut from both sides a little bit. So once I'm riding the bevel, it's nice and easy, no jumping. And as it gets to the edge, you start getting that rough edge. Start jumping. So when you're doing this side, you have to watch the shadows so you know where you're cutting. So I'm standing more over this way because I want to make sure I'm following the bevel along the edge. I mean, if I cut from here, the bevel's not going to be in the right position for the wood. As you get to the edge, you want to slow down your forward motion because you don't want to just fall off the edge of the wood. Lots to go. So once so you just keep cutting and cutting until you get the shape you like. And then you could, so this is the one I did yesterday. So you keep shaping and shaping to what you want, and then you put the tenon in, and then you flip it around. Okay. So I thought, in order to save some time, I'll do a couple more cuts, but then we'll move to this one. So that was about 500 RPM, 580. One of the things with the speed, anybody who's done the square and then the natural edge bowl, is when you have air gaps between the wood, the faster it spins, the quicker the wood comes back to you. So it tends to be a little bit more smoother. For some people, the speed scares them, but to me, it's just a matter of practice. The more you turn, the less the speed scares you. So I still need to take a lot of wood off to get it to the shape. But as you can see, that this bottom half, it's a lot smoother, and it's all because I'm riding the bevel going down as I'm moving around the bowl. So let me-
Are you cutting downhill or cutting uphill?
Down. Well, down to the bottom of the bowl. I mean, I could come this way, but either way you could do. That's one of the
Well,
problems.
if you're out at the end, but down on the bottom part.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you cut basically uphill towards the bark, you will knock the bark off.
If you go all the way up.
Right, right. Now, one of the things I didn't mention, before, so once I cut this round on the bandsaw, I put CA glue around the edge. And then once I shape the bottom, I'll put CA glue again. Let it dry. Now, I don't use the accelerant on it, and the reason is, if you put the accelerant on the bark and the accelerant expands, it'll pop the bark off. So you just have to walk away and let it dry and
You just use the thin stuff?
Thin CA.
To
yeah, penetrate, yes. Yeah. So what I would do at this point with this particular piece, I would measure off where my tenon was going to go. Because this way the bowl doesn't keep shrinking in size, unless you want a small bowl. Now, I have a couple of pictures. I didn't bring any, because I didn't have any to bring, but these small bowls, I've been making them into boxes. So there's a couple of pictures over there. So sometimes people want a big natural edge, but the small ones make really nice gifts and boxes. So I'll put this other piece in. Any questions so far?
Do you ever use a pull cut on your bowls?
A pull cut?
Yeah.
I have, yes. And I've used shear cutting for the edges. That's what I finished this one off. Yeah, because once you get to a certain point, you can do pull cuts and shear cuts to get a nice finish on it. Okay. So if I was at home, this one, so I put CA glue around. let it dry, and then come back. And then as I get closer, they'll determine whether I use more CA glue or not. So this is just same as regular bowls. It's a little more bumpier because you have tell the difference. I'm riding the bevel. There's no bark in the way. Now, I'm not putting a lot of pressure, pushing it, and letting the wood come to the tool. The reason I moved the tool rest in a little bit, because you started hearing the vibration of the tool, and so I wanted to eliminate that. Okay, so when you get to this point, this is the point, if I would keep going, what would happen is the wings would start flexing, vibrating. You might hear them with the tool. So at this point, I don't want to go any deeper until I determine how thick I want the wings. So I'm going to cut the wings a little thinner. Now once I do that, I'll keep going down, but I'm not going to ever come back up. Because if you try and come back up, you say, oh, I want to do a couple more cuts from the top all the way down to the bottom.
Yeah.
No, you'll have vibrations. It's like you put a chatter tool on it. And it's really hard to sand out. So I'm going to pass this piece out. So at this point is when you want to decide the thickness of your wings. Also, if you wanted to make a little box, you'd go down a little bit more and the lid would fit right inside the bar. Okay. So I'm going to go a little thinner. Go from there. Well, before I go on, did that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
How thin do you usually do yours, Pro?
You know, it really depends on the piece.
You don't have a set like 3/8 or 4?
No. I've done a couple where you put it up a light and you see the light through it. Those are fun to do. A little scary because they really wobble a lot. Not wobble, but they expand. So if we could see it in slow motion, you could see the wings move out. So what I'm checking before I go any deeper, how the cut was. So there's a little bit, couple lines. So I'm not going to make it any thinner. I'm just going to take a little hairline and cut.
How dry do you leave your blanks before you turn them all away?
6 months. And then as I turn, so like this piece, if I rough turn it and it's still really, really wet, I'll put it back and let it dry some more. thing is, with this tool rest, I think this is 12 inches, what's nice is you can actually use it as an armrest too. So your arm is resting on it. Just make sure that you don't get too close to the edge. But it gives some stability when you're holding it. I have 3 bowl gouges, they're all ground the same. This one's the heaviest in weight. I like this one because I can move the tool in and out depending on what's happening. This one I usually do my final cuts, it's the lightest. So I'll sharpen this and then I'll do my final cut just because I don't have to worry about holding this big piece of steel there. Anybody know how to stop and make it chatter?
Yeah, turn it off.
Turn it off.
Are you scraping?
No, I'm riding the bevel down the.
Do you ever scrape the bottom?
Yeah, you can do pull cut to, yeah. Yep.
Once it starts, you ever use a curved or S-shaped tool rest?
No.
'Cause that might help with the chatter to get, you wouldn't have all the overhang.
Yeah, I don't have one, but,
Well, come on, you're a rich guy. You got chickens, right?
so the other design element. On this, if you can get the heartwood right in the center of the bowl, so when you look down at it, it's right there. So this one's off a little bit, but but one step at a time. You work on the thickness of the wings, then you work on the shape you like, and then you work on, because really this comes from where you cut it in the wood.
That's character.
Sorry?
That's character.
Character, that's right.
Bull, not you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a character. Yeah. but it's oak, so. Well, if I had my sharpening, I would sharpen my tools, but, I mean, that's one of the issues. So from this point, I take a little more out, use, I have a couple scrapers that I would use. In fact,
Get a big scraper there, Carlin, for the bottom.
no, it's not a big scraper, it's 1 inch. But I tell people, I said, this scraper was my best friend for the first year. Because this is the only tool I could use. Until I figured out how to ride the bevel and do everything else. So as you all know, this is the only tool that you is horizontal.
Okay. And you say you'll let this dry for 6 months
Oh, no,
before you
this,
finish it? Or are you trying to finish it now?
no, this we let dry for a few months. You know, this will, I'll probably finish it up at home, but most likely it'll dry and the bark will pop off, just because it's so green. But that's okay. Now, if the bark does pop off, I take a torch and I burn it, so it's darker, so from the distance, it's like, hey, that looks nice.
You do Williams thing, gather up all the pieces.
Wow,
You're always missing one.
you're always missing the one.
You wouldn't put CA glue on that bark now?
Yes, you can. Yes. Now, normally what I'll do is when I finish the bottom, I sand it before I turn it over. Sand it completely. So if I was going to do CA glue, I would do it before I sand. And then I'd flip it over. So I try to finish the bowls as much as I can on the lathe. It's nicer that way.
Now, do you use a jam chuck when you flip it?
Yes. Yep. As everybody has different sizes, different shapes, so I just have some blanks that I will cut to the shape, and then I'll have this material to hold it. Yeah. On my wish list is a vacuum chuck. That'd be nice. Part of the vacuum chuck is faster and it's more effective. This, you know, I've had times where this wasn't on there quite right, and you turn it on and it makes a black line inside. So then you gotta go back and sand it by hand to get the mark off. But with the vacuum chuck, you don't have that problem.
This centers pretty nicely, doesn't it? That kind of jam chuck there.
Yes. Well, what I'll do is I'll turn this down to fit it just right. And so I have quite a few depending on the size of the bowls. But yeah, there's very rare that I pick one out of the box and say, oh, this fits good.
But if you got is that set up to grab it with your chuck?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yep. Okay. The other thing about safety sanding, I wear one of these all the time. Usually the first hour I won't, but you know, if you're there 2 or 3 hours, I wear this all the time. So.
Carlos, what brand is that? Where'd you get that?
Eclipse, it's Amazon.
Okay.
What's that?
All right.
$32. And these little filters pop out. First time I just sprayed it out. I was surprised how much stuff was in there. And then you can buy them, you know, replacements I think are $12 for a set of 2. But it's really comfortable. I don't get all, you know, sweaty and stuff, and works really well. Okay. I think you don't want to see it anymore, just like at home. Any questions or anything? Or? No?
As far as the seating,
Yes.
is there a brand that you think is better than others?
No, I've used Starbond, I've used Typebond, I've used Longhans. I just look for the price. I buy the 16-ounce bottles. Keep it in the refrigerator, freezer.